Welcome on into 19 on the Clock, your Tri-State high school and college sports podcast. I'm your host, Brad Pushkar. Joining me is my co-host, Jackson McCarty. Jackson, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man, especially after this past Friday.
Yeah.
You know, I am not happy about, it is a sad point of the year to no longer be out there shooting games.
Of course.
But after what I experienced on Friday, I'm okay staying in the warm a little bit.
Yeah. Gosh, I can only imagine how bad that was now that I really think about it.
Yeah, it was a time and a half. And we'll get into it because obviously went to the Anderson game. Anderson's still playing, spoiler alert for those who don't already know. But yeah, the gloves were not working. I needed probably 3 more pairs of socks, if I had to guess, some long underwear. I was not in preparation mode for that. And I'm going to halfway blame Joe Danton because
okay, all right,
because we talked about it, and he said there's this constantly reoccurring theme that regional finals is always frigid, bad, tough to deal with, but the week right after is typically your last kind of warm weekend. Not true in the slightest. Now, we have phenomenal meteorologists. I should have been checking that myself and thinking about it ahead of time. But I'm going to give Joe Danman the blame on that because I don't really want to, deal with it.
Definitely not any of the Mets, but it's Joe. It's Joe for leading you astray here.
Not me, absolutely.
Of course not. Definitely not.
Right.
Why would you decide what you wear?
Exactly. That's insane to even think. But point being, got to go out and watch some great Anderson football, phenomenal Anderson football game, and like I said, they are still marching.
We get to watch them again this week.
Absolutely.
And specifically on Thursday,
yes.
They're going to be the first local team to play their game. And so they are facing off with Avon.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about Anderson going into this matchup. Obviously, they have had such a phenomenal season. They've been one of those teams that just, it seems like every week it's like, they're going to win, but by how much?
Yeah, matter of fact, in the final quarter package that I did over it, I called them inevitable. Because that's very much what the season has felt like to this point in the year. Exactly. Yeah, you get it. But they have very much been the Thanos of their division, of their schedule, of their everything, of the Tri-State. And they just continued. Last week they played Big Walnut, and it was a tough challenge. Cold weather. I saw that laugh almost for the name. I respect it, but I got to call it out. You know how it is. But it was a tough matchup to go in there, especially with a team like Anderson, typically likes to throw that ball around a lot. We talk about that a lot on the podcast. Justice Burnham, he still ended up with like 250, 260 yards, no passing touchdowns and an interception. But where he really shined was the ground game. They scored a touchdown. It was under a minute. I think it was like 33 seconds left in the fourth quarter to get out ahead 28-24, and he got up. And he looked banged up, and he looked tired, and he looked like the game had worn on him, but he still got in the end zone. Mm-hmm. And that kind of mental fortitude, that kind of toughness to just finish through. He had a couple turnovers that would have messed with most quarterbacks' minds and made it to the point where maybe they don't feel comfortable being the one taking the charge at the end of the game. It was never an issue with Burnham. He stepped right through it. They got through the adversity.
And that's what you want to see from your quarterback,
right? 100%. And not to discredit anybody else on that team, there was a handful of phenomenal dudes. Darrell Turner put up good numbers. Trace Jalek, I think, had over 100 yards in that game. Caden Peening had a touchdown. Everybody stepped up and did their part. And while Anderson, obviously, everybody has to step up whenever you're winning by 40, 50 points, like we've seen the Raptors do throughout the year. You could feel the teamwork from the start of the game to the very end of it from them. And that was paramount to where we're at in the season.
And you mentioned that teamwork, you mentioned those scores. Obviously that is going to play a big part in this upcoming game. Looking at the notes that you sent me, 713 to 152 scoring differential for Anderson.
Yeah.
But for Avon, not too far behind, 592, 189 differential.
Yes.
Does this feel like the inevitable matchup for the Raptors this year?
Oh, 100%. Well, and obviously we have a handful of undefeated years left that are, coming down to this last game. This is a double undefeated matchup. So, obviously neither team has wavered yet. Neither team has faltered or fallen yet, which whenever you get that undefeated record and you get into this stage of the playoffs, you see a lot of folks bow out because they haven't faced that adversity. Both teams have managed to deal with that. It's just a matter of who's managed to remain the healthiest, I think. which, not knowing enough really to talk about that with Avon, but with Anderson, they're going to be bruised, but there's no doubt in my mind that they're just going to fight right through that.
Okay. And so with the Eagles, what are who has been showing up for them? Who are going to be the guys that Anderson's going to have to watch out for?
So notably, I couldn't really find any hard-proof numbers, but I do have some of their conference awards. Their quarterback won Offensive Player of the conference for the year. Nolan Good, he's had, from what it sounds like, a pretty tremendous year. Jeremiah Kelly, their linebacker, was the Southwestern Conference Linebacker of the Year. So, a stalwart on their defense. And then they had 8 all-conference players in total. So a pretty decorated team. Yeah. Those numbers aren't quite there, but from what I can at least gather from the points differential, the defense shutting people down, you're barely getting over 10 a game there. And then on offense, you're over doubling them, and not just too terribly far from tripling them. So not quite that high volume. Like you said, we're in 700 range now for the Raptors, but very capable of getting it done, for sure.
Do you think that defense is going to be able to slow down Anderson, though?
It depends on the weather. If we get a nice weather day, slowing Burnham down after a couple of tough passing weeks, again, due to that weather, he's been sub 35 temps these last 2 weeks. It's, you're looking for a revenge game. You're looking for a game where Burnham can stay in the pocket, where instead of using those legs like he's had to these past couple weeks. But if we get back down in those sub-zero or sub-freezing temperatures, I do kind of start to worry if it's been too many consecutive weeks of Anderson having to run that ball and kind of stray away from what we've seen work for them so well. That kind of starts planting those seeds of doubt to me.
And when you mentioned the weather, obviously that's a big deal, and this is going to be in Canton.
Yeah.
Northeast Ohio.
Snowy.
Absolutely getting
over a foot now, right?
I believe so. I know that the lake effect has really hit that stretch, or like Pennsylvania, New York,
yes.
Northeast Ohio, causing a lot of pileup. So our meteorologist has been focusing on Cincinnati, which
of course,
fair enough. But if that could obviously play a factor this weekend. I'm not entirely sure what the forecast is looking like up there.
Exactly, and this point in the year, you are just naturally going to be prepared for that because we are in Ohio. It does get cold. It's gotten colder earlier, but still usually going to be kind of nasty weather whenever tidal time rolls around. So,
yes.
If you're wanting the silver lining to that, it's that Burnham, the Raptors, they've already found a game plan on how to make the more running-centric offense work. The bad news is it's just been happening a lot. And, you naturally get a little scared about that, I think. But, yeah, like you said, Thursday kickoff is 7 p.m., and then all the Ohio games, obviously, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium out in Canton, so you'll be able to see that one out there.
And there's another game.
Yes, there is. And matter of fact, Brad, you and I will not have to focus too hard on it because, fortunately for me, I got Jeff, I got Barrett, the voices of Moeller football, sit down and talk to me about this game, the season as a whole, and what it's meant to them to watch this Crusaders team. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to 19 on the Clock. We're joined today by Jeff Schneidel, who's had a front row and probably the best seat in the house to the entirety of what has been a phenomenal Moeller season. Jeff, how you doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm a little colder than I want to be, but as is life.
Get this out of here, but it's going to be around for a couple of days.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, and especially in Canton, but you'll know about that.
It's not going to get warmer. There's no beaches up there.
No, sir, it's not. And obviously mentioning you going up to Canton, Moeller continuing into the final week of the football season. Obviously it's taken a lot to get to this point, but I kind of want to reflect a little bit on the early portion of the year. What are the biggest points of growth that you've seen for this Crusaders team throughout the year?
Well, with any team, it's kind of like a coming together. And that's really what Moeller High School is. In general, I mean, the students coming together, but even more so for the football team, this process has started, I'll even say years ago. We had a rough patch. Coach Mark Elder came in for 3 seasons, got us to 2 regional championships. He stepped out. We get Coach Bathiani in. We went to another regional championship last year, and of course, I made the comment we just need to do the Doors song and break on through to the other side, like we've done before, and we did it. But really, when they talk about the football season, it's not just start throwing balls around in July. I mean, it is a whole process. The kids have bought in, and just like with any team, you need to have talent, you need to avoid injuries, and you need to have some luck. Really, we haven't had to press the luck issue too much because we really have some really talented guys. And, these guys came in to Moeller when we weren't state champions and everybody wanted to go. So these guys all bought in. So it's been a process. And these guys are on a mission. I've seen it in other years where we won state championships that the team just, they could either fold and go away or bond and go and do it and take it all the way. And that's what's happened.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned the game of almost, if you will, in that state or in the state semifinals for so many years. What do you think it meant to this roster to finally get what was a really big win against Centerville?
Well, I think it's huge. Centerville has gotten us twice in the playoffs. No doubt that's been brought up. One of our best teams in the 80s, the 84 squad, the class of 1985, they went down with that. But so there was something where they wanted to get this taken care of. And I think right from the beginning, the statement was made. Let's not forget our second drive, we had 2 holding calls back to back, which was ironic. They were the only 2 holding calls in the game. But at that point, it was 7-0, and it kind of pinned us back. But that didn't deter them. I think the attitude is, okay, that's happened. They get the ball, they score a touchdown. Let's go back at it. And that's what they did. And it's really an offensive juggernaut that, we have an elite quarterback with an elite arm and elite mind, and we have great receivers. We have great tight ends, but let's not forget the offensive line has kept Matt upright most of the season, if not all the season. They've done an outstanding job. And let's not forget, they blocked for Mr. Football, pretty much the same unit. I think we had one senior graduate. That unit blocked for Mr. Football, Jordan Marshall, last year. So the offensive line, doing the broadcast, unfortunately, I don't get to call their names much. I really wish I could, but I can't watch the offensive line. I have to say what's going on. And conversely, even the defensive line. I mean, a lot of times they're getting tackles for loss or a sack, but they're making the plays in the trenches to let the other guys go make the plays, and they get their names called. So really, the offensive and defensive line have really been extremely have done extremely well and have been the leaders. And everything else is falling into suit. And I'm sure Matt would be the first to say he's crediting his offensive line, he's crediting his receivers. Doesn't hurt to have 2 6'3" receivers that really they've gotten to this point because they bought in the younger years. They saw what happened. I still remember Matt Fogler, one of his first plays, he went in as a sophomore. We had one of our senior receivers. The play went in. The senior receiver had to come out for an injury, and they put in this sophomore, Matt Fogler, and he like a 60-yard touchdown pass. They just did the play to him. So as a sophomore, and he was up and running, and he's gotten bigger and stronger. You throw in Jovan Love. We just got a great corral of receivers. We got 2 great tight ends. We got a great quarterback, a great offensive line. So, it's been a progression. Even Coach Bathiani early on, when I do the coaches shows, every team evolves, and you have to kind of see your identity. You have to see what's going to happen. And it's happened with this team. We've evolved. All of a sudden, okay, we got a guy throwing touchdowns, but we have no run game. I tell you what, we got a strong run game right now. We got a corral of 3. Tyler Jocelyn has kind of stepped in the forefront. He didn't even get any carries the first 2 games, I don't believe.
Yeah.
And he's done tremendous. So again, that offensive line, again, if you have the line play on both sides, you're going to do very, very well in that game of football.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned where we've talked about, Mr. Ohio football, Jordan Marshall, possibly a second one. Don't want to jinx him, but, Ponatoski has had a phenomenal year under center. Where does that kind of fall in some of those great seasons that you've seen of Crusaders football?
Well, I mean, we've had certainly great players over the years. I mean, from early on when Jerry Faust started the program and just built a tradition in the 70s, you know, winning the state championships and breaking through. We didn't just go win state championships. I mean, we got to the playoffs and lost 2 years before we broke through in 1975, 76, and 77. And you know what? If a field goal's missed or doesn't happen in 78, that might have been a run of 5 in a row. And so we've had great players. I mean, let's not forget when we went back to back in 2012 and 2013, you know, we beat Mentor 55-52, and Gus Ragland throws for 3 touchdowns and runs for 5. I mean, who in the world is participating in 8 touchdowns in a state championship game? And so that was just, yeah, we've had great players, but we've also had great teams. And that's what you can have a great player or two and not be very good. I mean, it's again, the guys doing in the trenches doing the job, getting it done. You know, it's the whole package.
Absolutely. And then, like we've kind of touched around a little bit, it's been a little over a decade now since there's been a state title, you know, on y'all's campus. What does it take from this roster? What are you looking for to bring home another one?
Quite honestly, I think we take care of the ball, and you know, you can either be dictated to or be the dictator. And I think we just got to keep that mentality. We got to do our thing on offense. We got to take care of the ball. You know, our defense, you know, it's not like we have defenses that are you know, shutting everybody down, but they're bending a lot of times and not breaking. And, you know, again, even playing St. X, where they tried to get it in, you know, first and goal at a very crucial time in the game, and they tried 3 times to run it right up the middle, and they didn't get a yard, and we stopped them. You know, the defensive line, I mean, they held it, and yeah, we had to start our 1-yard line, but you know, no big deal. But again, the bending and not breaking, Coach Sharp has done a phenomenal job. You know, we have solid players, and they're staying in their role. One's not trying to be a superstar or do, you know, things off the chart or do things they're not supposed to. They're doing their roles, and as a unit, they're you know, I don't think they get as much publicity with that, because you can have you have a great offense and you score quickly. I mean, against Centerville, I mean, you know, we get the ball at the 34-yard line for the first time, and, you know, we throw a pass, and Cooper McCutcheon, 9 seconds, you know, all of a sudden defense has to come back out. Let's not forget that. I mean, the defense holds them, and then they get a 9-second, well, more than that, a 2-minute break. They got to come right back out and do it again.
Barely enough to fill up the Gatorade bottles.
Yeah, so it's great having that. You know, sometimes you need your offense to be, you know, your best defense, and we certainly have done that with the run game. But again, let's not forget, if you're scoring a lot of points, you run your defense back out, they're going to be more suspect to giving up, you know, plays or big plays, and they've really just done a great job as a unit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, are you making the trip up to Canton?
Absolutely.
Good.
Do the podcast. I'm in for every game.
Absolutely.
You know, we've been all around. You know, this is just going up the road a little bit compared to the traveling we've done. Fort Wayne, you know, Ironton. God, love those folks. We love going to Ironton, but you know, it's just getting on a bus. We anywhere. You know, if we had to go to Ashtabula to play the state championship, bring it on. You know, and we'll all go there as well. So yeah, it's absolutely. I wouldn't miss it for the world. So
well, when you make that trip up to Canton, don't forget your skis. And thanks again so much, Jeff, for sitting down and taking some time with me.
That's not a pretty sight, me on skis. Let's put it right there. They're not packed. I do have some, but they're not packed. Don't you worry about it. So,
fair enough. Well, again, we appreciate you.
Thanks for having us, and go Big Mo.
All right, so that is going to be one game on Friday, 7:30 in Canton, but there is another game happening earlier in the day on Friday.
Yep.
In a different state. We're
Yes.
looking at Kentucky. We're heading down to Lexington for state finals down there. And we've got Beechwood facing off with Owensboro Catholic.
Yes, and we've got 3 trips to Kroger Field coming
Yes.
out of the Tri-State too. It's been a really, really impressive year for Northern Kentucky football. You know, we've, like you said, Beechwood. We've got Ryle still going. We've got Cooper still going.
Yeah.
And those are 3 potential title-winning teams. Like Beechwood, for example, they've had one of the more impressive playoff runs, I think, in the entire state of Kentucky. They're yet to score below 44 points in the
nice.
playoffs. They just won by 22 against Lexington Catholic, I think it was.
Yes.
Or Lexington Christian rather.
Just Christian.
Just beat Lexington Christian by 22. They're not a team I've had the benefit of going out to see live at this point in the year, but gleaming enough from their highlights from the final quarter, they're a really well-balanced team. They've got a quarterback in Clay Hayden that's over 2,800 yards, 46 touchdowns, to only 6 picks. It's kind of crazy that we don't hear more about him just considering that volume. But they've also got running back Chase Flaherty, who's over 1,330 total touchdowns. They've got Luke Erdman, who has 12 touchdowns as a receiver and 4 interceptions as a defensive back. There's a lot of guys that are maximizing their roles, and a handful of dudes that can kind of play across that line and are just fitting in how they need to, which is a lot of what being a title team is all about.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I will note, or I did note about this with Owensboro Catholic, is that this is the only team with a point differential that's better than
Yes.
Beechwood in 2A.
Yeah. It was kind of funny because on the KHSAA website, when you're sorting through those stats, they actually they do a really nice job of showing you who should win. They sort by those stats. And Owensboro Catholic, we've got Beechwood, who's on 655 to 205. Then you look over to Owensboro Catholic, the Aces, 642. So what is that? 13 points less, but they've allowed almost 70 points less at 138. So that defense is a problem, we'll say. If you've only let up 138 points in 14 games, you're under that 10-point threshold. That's incredibly hard to not at least have a game or two that gets up into that 30, that stuff that really blows your numbers out.
Yeah, absolutely. So who are some of the key players for both teams heading into this matchup?
We'll start with Beechwood, obviously. Yeah. The guy that I'm watching, or the couple of guys I'm watching on defense, is going to be Maddox Kelly, Nathan Pabst. Maddox has 7.5 sacks. Nathan's got 3 picks, 2 of those pick sixes.
Very nice.
Yeah, that kind of juice, that kind of energy to be able to flip the script, set some of that momentum up the right way. That's going to be paramount in a game like this, especially considering Owensboro is undefeated. We mentioned that perfect stretch of the year, and a big part of that is getting comfortable, and we see it across the tri-state. A lot of these undefeated teams got comfortable in the playoffs. A lot of them also figured out how to, win while they're uncomfortable. But you have to do whatever you can to make the undefeated not feel like that. So, a pick six or an early sack or, some kind of pressure that makes them wake up and say, our record is better, but this is very much a game that can go anywhere and can go towards anyone. Establishing that as early as you can is priority number 1 for Beechwood.
A team with a better record getting upset by a team with a worse record.
I got a feeling we might
where we
talk
could go
about
for that
something
eventually,
like
but
that. Yeah. But you did ask me about key players for the Aces, so I'll go ahead and give those to you now.
Yes.
Brady Atwell, 3,400 passing yards, 47 touchdowns. Tough dude. He's only got 5 picks. So when we're talking about those pick sixes, that's where those kind of need to come into play. And then another dude that I'm keeping eyes on is his favorite target, bar none, Warren Ebelhar, over 1,100 and then 13 touchdowns.
Okay, so some offensive weapons that are
Yeah.
obviously going to cause some issues.
Right, you slow down that duo, and it looks a lot better for the Tigers. But if they find that rhythm, they find that momentum, it could be tough sledding. Even though the sledding will probably be mostly done in Canton.
Yeah, I don't know if the snow's getting as far down here yet. I know we are getting cold weather on Thursday, but
Yes.
We'll have to see what happens for Lexington. If they get any snow, hopefully they don't. It's
Yeah.
a nice game for these kids to play in.
Even though part of me does think it would be really funny if, for whatever reason, Canton is like just super nice this weekend.
It's sunny in Canton and
Right.
it's snowing in Lexington.
Yeah, in Lexington, it's just like, wait, we thought we were away from all this snow and all this nightmare ordeal. But yeah, this is going to be a fun one. This is the one that I would consider the most unpredictable as far as our tri-state involvement.
Yeah.
Partially obviously not knowing too much about the undefeated Aces, but it's always kind of tough to get a full gauge on that kind of game.
And obviously, we're looking at all these games on paper in a way that,
Right.
yeah, you can draw it up, but who knows what's really going to happen. And it could end up going really well in our
Exactly.
local favor.
Well, and it's not like, like I had mentioned, I haven't been able to have the fortune to go into a Beechwood game this year. It's not a situation like Ryle where I've seen it, in living color, and I know that is going to be one of the toughest teams to put out across the state. I mean, the Raiders are cooking up something great out there.
And as you talk about Ryle, they're going to be facing off with Trinity on Saturday.
Yes.
At 4. Ryle has been one of those teams that is always ready to compete.
Yes.
Each week.
100%.
What strength going into this game with Trinity do you think is going to be the biggest key for them to bring home a championship?
So this is something I mentioned last week, but it's just a stat that I love so much.
Yeah.
This has the potential to be my Matt Stafford and Clayton Kershaw played sports together and grew up together stat. You know what I mean? Like that gets over-mentioned because the Ryle Raiders, their core group of juniors, did not lose a football game between 3rd and 8th grade. And when you have that 5-year stretch of all you do is win, and it's with the same guys that you're doing it with in high school, 12-2 season, almost tripling up they are tripling up their opponents just about, 488 to 131. They're over tripling them. So,
just short. Wait, no, over.
Yeah, because if you triple that, that's 393. So yeah,
okay, we'll stick to the journalism from here on out.
Yes, we'll do the roundabouts. Yeah. But when you have that core group of dudes, that chemistry is so locked in and so built in, and they've been playing like a varsity team in terms of chemistry since they were 13, 14 years old. That is almost impossible to beat. That's why we have so many culture coaches in college, in the NFL, because once you have that and you can convince the whole team that on their best week they are unbeatable, that is dangerous. And that's exactly what Ryle has going for them.
And so what does Trinity have that could cause a slow up for Ryle?
Yeah, so the big one that I would kind of be worried about is their defense. Obviously, they're averaging about 9.3 allowed per game. Whenever you are going up against guys like Jacob Savage and Nathan Virax and some of those really talented weapons that Ryle has, the quicker you can shut them down and just you can't stop them, but you contain them. If you can keep Ryle to 14 points in the first half, I think you go, okay, here we go, because that goes such a long way in disrupting that tempo early that, again, has been established for almost a decade at this point. So that's the big one I'd watch. Their offense isn't really anything just too crazy. Most of their games end up being close. Like last week, they beat Frederick Douglass 17-0. So,
shut them out, but you're not scoring as much
right
as some other teams might have.
It built more like Winton Woods than Anderson, if we're going to use that kind of perspective.
Yeah.
Obviously both teams have great defense. Winton Woods struggling a little bit more to have those gaudy 30, 40, 50-point weeks. So that would be the big thing that I'm watching. I'd like to see if maybe Dylan Lee can have a big role in this one, because he has such an important role on both sides. He's got almost 550 receiving yards, and then on the opposite end, he's got 6 picks. So
like catching the ball.
Exactly. The dude knows where the ball is, knows how to find it, and will take it home if you let him. So he's kind of that ultimate do-it-all guy for them, and I think his role within this game is going to be to either make or break that tempo. So I'm interested to see kind of how that shakes up.
Okay. That'll definitely be an interesting to watch. And then lastly, on Saturday, one of your favorite teams.
Yes.
Cooper playing Bowling Green, 8 p.m. Obviously, Cooper is another one of those teams that has an undefeated season. Cam O'Hara has been a name that you love to say.
Here's the problem. He gives me too many reasons to say it. I want to almost exclusively focus on the Highlands game, because I think that was so massive for the Jaguars. They put out the Bluebirds last week 61-23. Now, if you remember when we were talking about that game last week, they won single digits earlier in the year. So to circle back around and have that kind of performance, right before the state title game, no less, is, I mean, that tells you exactly what kind of team you're expecting to see out of the Jags.
Yes.
I mean, it was a freak show. And some of those numbers back it up, too. Like Cam O'Hara, 285 pass yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Riker Campbell, the running back, 106 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception as a defensive back. Isaiah Johnson got over 120. Austin Alexander had 2. His stat line was insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I need to pause and collect myself before I run through this stat line. So 62 yards.
Okay.
2 receiving touchdowns.
All right.
1 forced fumble.
Sure. Okay.
2 sacks.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. I mean, in a partridge in a pear tree, right?
Yeah.
Like it was. He had everything.
5 golden rings.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least maybe one.
Maybe one.
We'll see how that goes. But I mean, the whole defense. Oh, and I don't want to forget about Mike Mulville. 3 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries.
How many fumbles were going on in this game?
I believe
Jeez.
4. I believe
Okay.
4, and I think Mike picked up all 4 of them. Yeah.
Good on him.
Yeah.
That's
Talk about being around the ball, right?
yeah, and having the that's one of the things I hate seeing in like the NFL or even sometimes college, when guys are just like trying to pick it up and run with it.
Yeah.
And then you have another like fumble from that because
Or
they
you
don't
kick
actually
it,
have it.
or
They
yeah.
kick it. It's like, yeah, just grab the ball and drop it and do what you can.
But I say you're already on the 30.
Yeah.
Your offense only has 30 yards to go. Just drop down.
Yes.
Would it be cool to score a touchdown in your high school playoff game? 100%. And if the path is wide open, go for it, young man. But if there's guys around you, or you just sack the quarterback
Just
and
grab
you're
that
in this
ball.
pile, grab it, hold on to it for dear life. Your team will thank you for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the entire effort that came from Cooper against Highlands was absurd. And you talk about, avenging close games or avenging, losses. I know Cooper hasn't really had to deal with that this year. But to turn around and hear the chatter about Highlands being on that level and being really close to them and saying, whenever it comes down to it, no one is stopping us from getting to this state title game, and nobody is stopping us from just dropping dominance. They said, no, that's us. We're going to do it. They did it. 61 points is absurd against a team as high quality as Highlands is. So,
And that's the thing, is that it doesn't seem like Bowling Green is, a team to scoff at either.
no.
But this Cooper team just feels like it's on, is to draw another, like reference, it'd be like a Galactus.
Yeah.
Coming and destroying all the planets. It's like, yeah, we're just taking the next one.
Yeah, dude, they are collecting wins. They are collecting Infinity Stones. They are collecting everything you need to have in order to leave this weekend with a ring on your finger and a smile on your face. And it is, I am pumped that most of this team will be around next year.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get ahead of myself. But if you do it once, what's stopping you from doing it again with another year of this team being together, all the seniors this time?
Absolutely.
It's crazy to think about, but this might not even be the peak for Cooper in terms of the next 12 months. So, but let's go ahead and shift a little bit. I don't want to just completely discredit and remove Bowling Green. The
Sure.
Purples have done a lot to get here. They're 13-1. Just beat South Warren. Close game last week, 31-28.
Yes.
Their quarterback, Deuce Bailey's over 3,000 passing yards, 45 touchdowns. You absolutely take that. They've got Trevi Barber, a receiver. Awesome first name, by the way, Trevi.
Yeah.
I dig it. 1,200 yards, 22 touchdowns is crazy. But this is the guy that really concerns me. Montez Trussell.
Ooh. Yeah.
15 sacks, 26.5 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles. And then they've got a pair of defensive backs that have 3 interceptions each. Like, it's not going to be easy for the defense. Cam O'Hara and company are going to have to keep their head on a swivel, but that O-line should be able to hold up. They've got a good O-line.
Yes.
And if I'm putting all my eggs in one basket of all of our teams to come out with a state title, it's Cooper.
You picking Cooper?
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned the offensive line, and obviously we've seen them do solid stuff this year. I do like that. You get a little bit of a challenge in that final game to really prove, like, yeah, we are gonna keep Cam safe. You know,
Tressel kind of gets to feel like a final boss in a sense, like in that game plan.
Yes.
And then the O-line gets to say, you know what, no, it was actually an easier challenge, or, you know, it was hard, but we managed, and we got through, and we won. And that would be the storyline for me to watch in this one.
okay. And that game again is at what the time that I
Saturday
said, Saturday at 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
It's always sad to see the end of high school football.
It really
you know,
is.
because it's just it brings such a nice energy, and obviously, you know, all the states I've lived in are kind of big
High school regions.
high school football states.
Okay.
Texas,
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Indiana, Ohio.
Yes.
And you know, obviously you have like a Florida, you have like a California where you get a lot of talent. But I think the way that, especially at Texas, Ohio, Indiana, the way the like local communities support their schools.
Atmospherically, they are
Totally different.
unparalleled.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about being in the Midwest, you still get basketball after.
Yes, you do.
So-
Yep, and I actually might be shooting this weekend, or this Friday rather. But if I am shooting, it's those basketball
Heading
games.
on to basketball games.
Which you guys are only a week away from me delving into that too. That'll be an interesting one.
We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited. But so we kind of teased this earlier. Oh wait, no,
No,
we've got one prior.
Because there's another game on
Yes,
Saturday.
yes, there
That's the
is.
best thing.
Yeah.
This one's not in Ohio, not in Kentucky. It is in Michigan. It's
Okay.
in Detroit. It's the MAC championship. It's only team playing locally for a conference championship. Louisville came up short. UK came up very short in the SEC.
We'll
Obviously,
talk
the
about the other
SEC has
one.
been tough.
We'll
talk about the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But the Miami playing in the MAC championship, and if you had told me after week 1 in that game against Northwestern that Miami was going to be playing in the MAC championship this year, I would have probably been like, I don't think so.
It's like, yeah.
You know, Toledo looked really strong. Northern Illinois had beaten Notre Dame.
Yep.
And then Notre Dame never looked back after that game and
No.
said, we're not letting that happen.
That
again."
woke them up.
But you have Miami, you're playing Ohio. Bobcats obviously have been always a competitive program
Yes.
in the MAC. This is kind of the game I'm actually looking forward to most of any conference championship.
Really?
You have SMU, Clemson in the ACC.
Right.
I think SMU is pretty well favored. I think Oregon's going to win the Big Ten
Yeah.
against Penn State. Big 12 is just kind of scary as a conference overall, and I don't like to look at it. And Texas feels like the SEC's favorite. But
Right.
with the MAC, I actually don't know between these two teams like who is going to win. And the fun thing is that the stats kind of line up with it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna let you because I do not want to steal your thunder. But yeah.
And actually, if you want to do me a favor, can you look up the line? Because I haven't done that yet.
Or here, I'll just do it on my phone.
Yeah.
It's easier.
So Miami playing Ohio. Miami beat Bowling Green State in the game last week. Great game. Good on them for bringing home that win. Miami's defense is going to need to show up with Ohio. Ohio has been playing pretty solidly on offense. I think at a better level than Miami has seen over the season.
Okay. I've got your line, whatever, by the way.
But I think that Miami has shown so much improvement this year.
Yes.
You know, it's just been a week-to-week growth thing. Blake Gabbert won Offensive Player of the Week for the MAC. That was just announced yesterday, so that's great for him. And heading into this game, you want him to be the leader, to be ready to help get this offense going. And I really think that this is going to come down to kind of like that Bowling Green game of defense versus defense.
Okay.
And it's kind of who can make the other let them score more
Yeah, okay.
in a way.
Yeah, like it's more like we know these offenses are going to be relatively similar in terms of being able to probably put in that 15, 20, 25 range. It's just a matter of who can get the highest within that bubble.
Just looking at their estimated points added margins, about the same. Like overall, they are Miami is 75th in the country. Ohio is 80th in the country. On offense, Miami is 88th. Ohio's 86th.
Yeah.
On defense, 60th for Miami, 74th for Ohio. Like,
Splitting hairs.
yeah, and it's just a negative .02, a negative .03. And that's yeah, it's such a weirdly close game. And you look at the stats from College Football Insiders. Win probability for Miami 50.06%, 49.94%, 23.09 projected points, 23.07 projected points for Ohio.
It sounds more like an election prediction than
It really does.
Like you don't see them that close.
If you're playing, if you're in line to play, stay in line is
Right.
what they're basically saying here. Tell me what the line is, because I am really interested in seeing.
Miami is favored.
Okay, is it? Let me guess, like 1.5,
2.5.
2.5. Okay,
2.5. And then that would mean Miami is also minus 140.
okay.
So
Yeah, and I think that is, I think that's a little fair.
it's I mean that's pretty much pick 'em. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that field goal margin. It's
Part-
kind of that toss up, anyways.
Part of me makes it go like, is it accounting for like a fan arrival to Detroit, where
Oh, yeah.
you might have more people that are Miami fans willing to travel up there versus like students at OU.
Or just momentum, like
A
you
little bit
said,
of that momentum, yeah.
Miami progressing like they have throughout the year. I feel like that might be more indicative of that, because like you said, they've just continued to get stronger and stronger and stronger as it's gone on. So, and like you said, the fan factor might be part of that. But again, it's just like whenever the game's that close, maybe you can kind of get somebody to bite on a line like that, because Vegas is sneaky.
The Vegas is sneaky, but and it's going to come down to which of these teams is sneaky too.
Exactly.
Who is going to be able to find those holes in these solid defenses.
This is the All-State Sneaky Bowl.
All-State Sneaky Bowl. I like that one.
I don't know if I can give away All-State's branding.
Yeah, I don't know if
but,
All-State can take that
maybe
one.
the Fox 19 Sneaky Bowl.
Fox 19 Sneaky Bowl. Very good. But yeah, and so Miami has a chance to repeat.
Yeah.
And be MAC champions again. That's fun. That's exciting. I love seeing that.
100%.
Best of luck to them. Also, I never said it, but best of luck to all of the
Oh,
high
yeah.
school teams that are playing this weekend as well.
100%.
Yeah.
That's
Fantastic accomplishments for this year.
Yeah,
so.
and for everybody whose season's already been ended, be it last week or 5 weeks ago, it's never easy to go out there for 10 weeks or more and just get your body hit, and deal with what you're dealing with. And we appreciate all you guys for going out there on Fridays and Saturdays and everything in between, just for us to be able to watch a little bit of ball.
Yeah. So let's move to what has been the biggest talking point for, I think, the Midwest, let alone the state of Ohio since Saturday. And that is Ohio State's loss to Michigan, 13-10 in Columbus. Ryan Day is now 1-4 against the Wolverines through his career.
Yes.
Obviously, Jackson, as we've kind of talked about, you're already hearing talk of, is Ryan Day going to get fired?
Yes.
And I don't think that in the time between us recording this, we're recording this on Tuesday the 3rd. We'll have this out before the Thursday games start and things like that. I don't think between now and then will he be fired.
No.
No.
Playoff
I
run.
don't.
You can't afford to pick up an interim coach for a playoff run.
No. Do I think in the background the AD may be looking at things and going, who could be an option? Yes, absolutely.
That eval process started Saturday at 4 p.m.
Yes. A little different than, like, say, Purdue's athletic director, who said after the 66-0 loss to IU, he decided he had to make a change, took the buyout, $10 million, plus I think it's like $4 million or something like that. So,
Right.
But if you think about that, for Purdue, $10 million, a lot of money.
Yes.
Ryan Day, in the grand scheme of like top coaches, doesn't have as big of a buyout.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
So I know I warned you that I was doing
Yes.
this, of gathering
You've created a Buckeye Bible of sorts.
a little bit, yes. Well, yeah, actually, with how many pages I printed out,
Yeah.
you're right. I want to just talk about coaches right now.
Okay.
This is across the country.
It's my favorite kind of talk. Let's do it.
Do you know who the highest paid coach is?
Kirby.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart. And this is all according to USA Today's coach data portal stats that they have. Kirby is making over $13 million a year.
Okay.
Buyout of $118 million right now. That's the highest buyout by far.
Well, yeah, dude, that's higher than most contracts in the NFL. That's
Oh yeah, and
insane.
I don't remember when he last signed, but I believe it was recent. So
It's also probably like what Saban has, or had, I guess, because his just auto-renewed every time a coach signed a bigger deal than him.
yes, I could actually see that happening.
Right, and I think that's probably what they've got Kirby on.
Because then next highest paid is still competing for a championship title in the ACC. Do you want to play guess the coach or?
Well, that's got to be Dabo.
That's Dabo,
Because
yep.
it's not Rhett Lashley. I like Rhett Lashley. Do not get me wrong.
Very true.
But it's not Rhett Lashley.
$11 million, $60 million buyout.
Yep.
And I think it's hard to compare Kirby and Dabo to Brian Day. I think those schools.
Have won national titles.
Well, yeah, they've won national titles under those coaches. They're also still competing for conference titles right now.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that, with these losses, has kept Ohio State out of the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last couple of years were different because it was you lose to Michigan, they go to the Eastern. But this year now it's, hey, you drop down of second place, and you're down to fourth, technically behind IU and behind Penn State.
Yeah, and now all of a sudden it's just mounted up to where even though your losses are a rivalry team that's always going to be close,
Yep.
and the top-ranked team, probably the best team in the country, you don't have that margin. You know,
No.
you've already incorporated all the best of the Pac-12. You cannot have any room to breathe.
And especially this year where you have a 6-5 Michigan coming into this game. At least the last couple of years, it's like, yeah, it's the number 1 and number 2 teams in the nation playing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you come up short.
Oh, yeah. big
It
deal.
happens.
Literally like the Oregon-Ohio State game earlier this year.
Yes, or like the Ohio State games that like the back end of Urban Meyer's tenure had, where all of a sudden Michigan's within 3 points.
You're right.
You know, things like that. But this is the year where you can't let that happen, and they did.
Yes.
Let's move on to another big name coach. Went from playing for, or excuse me, went from being in consideration for a college playoff last year to bottom of the conference this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike Norvell with Florida State,
Yes.
$10 million a year, 63 and 63.7 million. Just added Gus Malzahn as offensive coordinator.
Which, if you were wondering why, $63 million is why.
Yeah, and
can't
you
give
make
up on
that
that.
changes. And I think that was kind of what the Chip Kelly hire was supposed to be for this year for Ohio State. And again, that's just a concern when you don't have the offensive productivity against your rival that you were expected to have.
Well, and I think all year the running game looked a little flat relative to having
Yeah.
Travion and Quinshon Judkins back there. It wasn't taking the country by storm like most people expected it to. I think Will Howard probably exceeded expectations.
Yeah. I think up until the last few weeks where he started being more interception prone.
Right. But I think that was what people at least expected from him. Or didn't really expect
Yes.
that needle moving quality.
No, nobody expected him to be a 2019 Joe Burrow with
Right.
LSU. Nobody expected him to be
Cam Ward.
Cam Ward. Yeah. Nobody expected him to be Travis Hunter. Or not Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, really nobody expected him to
Certainly
be
not.
Travis Hunter. But yeah, and so let's go into a little bit more of the like shaky seasons, especially for.
Yeah.
I think this is probably a team that is a very good comparison in terms of fan bases. SEC, 9-3. Coach has some ties locally.
Oh. SEC 9-3. Am I being stupid?
You might be. The coach having local ties should have been better for you.
Well, but you said SEC.
Yeah. LSU. Brian Kelly.
Oh my gosh. I thought they went 8-4. I don't know why. Okay.
Did they go 8-4? And
No.
I even over.
They probably went 9-3. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. I'm not a Brian Kelly fan. I'm not a big Brian Kelly guy. So
Respectfully,
yeah,
I am not either.
No.
Especially after he left.
yeah. I'm also not
UC.
an LSU guy. So it's kind of a perfect matchup for that, at least in.
Yeah, you're right. 8-4.
Oh, okay.
That's
cool.
why. So I threw you off.
Yeah.
But yeah, 8-4, and LSU fans, from everything that I see on the internet, a little bit less aggressive than Ohio State fans in terms of like social media,
Yes.
but have that same expectation of you need to be competing for a national championship every single year, and that's why they got rid of Coach O.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that you've made these changes. Why you brought in Kelly in the first place, kind of thinking he would do that, and now you're ninth in the conference.
Right, and yeah, you're behind South Carolina.
Yes.
And by no means disrespect to South Carolina, but
No.
they are not that legacy program that LSU is.
Mm-hmm.
You're behind. Let's see, there was another one up there that is kind of a rarity, wasn't there, in the SEC rankings? Obviously, Texas.
Well, A&M
Right.
has turned around.
Yeah,
Since the Jimbo years.
yeah, which
So.
that was a good time. But like even Texas, hitting the ground running, you're behind them. I know
Yeah.
they're leading the conference, but you're supposed to be this SEC through and through, able to represent that conference.
It's supposed to be LSU, Georgia, Alabama, running the SEC every year, maybe trading around and
With some semblance of Tennessee and then Lane at Ole Miss, just because it is Lane and
yeah, they get scrappy and get an upset each year.
exactly.
But you also had a year where Vanderbilt beat a lot of teams.
Yeah, they did.
You have a year where UK upsets Ole Miss, loses every other game in the SEC.
At least Auburn hasn't changed.
Yep, that is very true. I'd say, and Hugh Freeze is another one of those coaches that's up there.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to try and move off of him yet. I feel like if that does change, they'd let him run out. But
And they also had to just bypass too much baggage with him.
Yeah.
To tap out and spent too much money on him to tap out and kind of throw that white flag out right now.
for sure. So now another SEC team. I'll tell you how much the coach is making, $9 million.
Okay.
Buyout is $44 million.
Would this be Stoops?
This is Stoops.
Okay.
And I think in terms of this list, he had the worst. He is making the most money, or has the biggest buyout,
Okay.
and also making the most money with the worst record. And I do think.
Florida State.
Oh
Florida
no,
State
you're
would be
right.
going worse.
Yeah.
But still,
Florida
Florida State we included exclusively as like this big giant outlier, and we know that they're not going to cut him loose.
And part of that whole thing was that like the transfer portal
Exactly.
and changing out everything on that team.
And so many drafted kids, and and again, like
Yes.
I said, Malzahn's been brought on. He's not. Norvell's not going anywhere.
They're
Stoops
making the
could be.
change. Yes.
Right.
And Kentucky's a different kind of team where they want to go to a bowl. 8-4, 9-3.
Right.
Great.
Literally, to put it in Big Ten terminology, what Paul Chryst was doing at Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
That's what they need. And
Paul Chryst needed to beat Minnesota. Could probably beat Nebraska and Iowa too.
Yeah.
You just want to beat those teams. But yeah, you get to the championship game and then, okay, you're playing Ohio State or you're playing Michigan.
Right, it's not that big
What are you
of a
gonna
deal.
do? Yeah.
But
Kind of like a Kirk. I mean, honestly, it's what Kirk Ferentz is doing at Iowa still too.
Yes.
And part of that's just the name of Ferentz at this point is going to stay with
Yeah.
Iowa.
You're a defensive player or a tight end. You're like, yep, I'll go there. That's fine.
But there are two coaches who have a smaller buyout than Ryan Day, as $10 million, $37 million buyout.
Okay.
Lane Kiffin making $9 million, $36.5 million buyout.
So yeah, just that slight margin.
Yeah, and I don't think Lane's moving.
Or if he does, it's not because the team fired him.
Yeah, it's his choice. The one that I go, this may be a change, or he gets one more year, and if this happens again, Mike Gundy.
Okay.
He's making $7.75 million, $25 million buyout.
Yeah.
And obviously Oklahoma State just didn't even get near the expectations that they had for this year.
Well, and you compound that with some of the questionable things.
Off the field stuff, yeah.
Yes, that he kind of started at the beginning of the year. I think they have plenty of reason to shift a different direction if they so choose.
Yeah, and especially with the one player who.
Oh, Ollie?
Well, no, not even Ollie. Not Ollie. Was it Ollie that got arrested?
I thought so.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Yes, you're right. It was Ollie that got arrested for intoxicated driving. I want to say.
Yeah. Let me double check that before we are throwing around allegations.
Yeah, that is what I believe it was.
Yes, Ollie Gordon arrested June 30th for DUI, or on suspicion of DUI.
On suspicion of DUI, and at Big 12 Media Days, Gundy was like, "Well, yeah, he's going to play. He's our best player."
Right.
And at the time, Stephen Godfrey, who has been covering and reporting on college football for a long time, he's basically said with Gundy, it's like, in his head, that he didn't say anything wrong.
Yeah. It's just.
But everyone looked at it and went, what is going on at Oklahoma State? And then you have a season like this, and you don't necessarily have cause for that, but
you do.
You get questioned. Yeah, and
the
then
cause is underwhelming seasons, which this is not the first of.
But I'm saying, like, you don't have cause to fire and not pay the buyout.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I meant. Like, firing with cause.
This isn't like a almost Harsin situation. This is this is just a, we disagree with what you're saying, please stop doing that.
Not a Patino situation, things like that.
Yeah.
And then one more I wanted to note was Luke Fickell, $7.7 million in Wisconsin, $40 million buyout right now, 5-7 for Wisconsin this season. I don't think fans in Madison are going to be happy about that for the long term, but I think they are going to give him a year or two to kind of right the ship.
You have to, and to be perfectly honest, he is why I think they might give Ryan Day another year, because I think Fickell was supposed to be the inherent successor.
Yes.
But this Wisconsin experiment has not gone how it was supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, that as defensive coordinator, he helped lead the Buckeyes through Tressel years, through Urban Meyer years, obviously interimed for the 2011 season. I do think that that was their first choice, and then when he left for Cincinnati, and then Urban left, it's kind of like, oh crap, we got to figure something out.
There's another name on this list. He doesn't really have local ties, but if Ohio State does decide they want to make a move, I think you have to call Lane.
Interesting.
Because if you're going to get Lane away from Ole Miss, it's going to have to be a massive job.
Yeah.
And, there's one of 6 of those in the country. Tennessee, I think he would. There could be a possibility of that ever happening, but Heupel looks happy. Bama's not opening. Georgia's not opening.
Nope.
Ohio State could. And then you've got USC again, which
I don't think they're
going
to. I have Lincoln Riley on here. He's making $10 million. Unknown buyout, not listed, but. Yeah, they're shaky, but I don't think they're going to dump him just yet.
Again, you're right. It's a situation where you've invested so much you cannot just hit the fail button on this right now.
Yeah, but you're right. Those are kind of the teams that I think he would even go for. I don't know necessarily that like a USC would bring him in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But let's talk. I did want to talk about, because you mentioned it, the one buyout from last year.
Yes.
Jimbo Fisher, record-setting buyout.
Yes.
$76 million. That's $7.2 annually. He got paid $19.2 million up front. He's getting paid annually through 2031. And I don't know if you can structure a $37 million buyout to stretch it out over a couple of years.
Surely.
But obviously that makes it a lot easier on boosters for Ohio State and things like that.
Yeah, especially if you're willing to match that 19 up front. Drops that down to, I'm not going to do the math, but I think that's $18 million over however many years. Or, something like that.
Yes.
So, that's a lot easier to stomach.
Now, the thing about Ryan Day, too, is that everybody keeps comparing him to John Cooper. And I think that is a little bit unfair, in a way. Cooper was 2-10-1 against Michigan.
All right.
But wins a Rose Bowl.
Okay.
Continues to have solid seasons except for his first 2. Last 2.
Yep.
Had a 6-6 season the year before he left and was fired. Day's not having those seasons.
I did.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I did not expect this to be a pro Cooper thing. I thought this was going to be like here's why Ryan might be a little above. But you're saying that.
Oh no! I think Ryan Day shouldn't be compared to Cooper, because I think Cooper is actually worse.
Okay.
Than what Ryan Day is doing. Obviously, he's 1-4,
right?
And that's not good. Cooper lost 4 in a row to start, tied a game, loses again.
Yep.
Wins 3 losses in a row, win 2 losses in a row to Michigan, and he's out.
Okay.
But again, those last 2 losses are below 10 wins. It's a 6-6, and I want to say an 8-4.
Okay.
Like no bowl.
Not the Ohio State standard.
No, I think he was losing bowls at that time. Like he wasn't performing in the postseason, and I think it's a little weirder in a way to compare that to what Day has had to go through. Obviously, he has lost the last couple bowls, but he's also had players go, well, yeah, I'm going to the draft. I'm not playing in the bowl game.
Right.
Bowls don't mean what they did back in just in the 90s.
Yeah.
But also, between Ohio State and Michigan, you don't have that many winning records.
Yeah.
Look at Michigan.
Okay.
Who do you think has the best record against Ohio State of all time?
I don't know.
Would you say would the first person that comes to your mind Bo Schembechler?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Cool. Cause I almost wanted to say it was Harbaugh, but he had such a tough go of things.
Harbaugh has a losing record. He left.
Right.
He won those 3 and then left. He was 0-5 going into those years.
Right.
But Schembechler is like the face of Michigan coaching.
Of course.
Is not the best, and it's arguable, or it does not have the best record against Ohio State. It's Fielding Yost, who was coached from 1901 to 23.
That was my second guess.
And then 25 to 26. Now, you may be going, well, who is he? To show you how old in football this was, he created the hurry-up offense.
Oh, cool. Sick. So we're back in, what, the 20s, you said?
01 to 23.
Okay.
And then 25, 26, and then became the athletic director.
Okay.
And then has 6 national titles, but it's also at a time when, like, you were just like, yeah, we're the national champions.
Yeah, right. You could just
It's weird.
that.
Their next best is Herbert Chrysler, who the Chrysler Center is named after.
Yeah.
7-2-1, one national championship, has the most. Or no, excuse me, that's Schembechler still. But I was gonna say, and then Schembechler, who was coached from 69 to 89, overlapped with Woody Hayes. You have that. That's when I think the rivalry really became key.
Yes.
And you have those 2 huge coaches. And then Gary Moeller takes over for Schembechler. Also is overlapping with Cooper at that time. Bo's last season is 89, which is Cooper's second season.
Okay.
Moeller takes over, only is there for 4 years because he had to resign after basically a scandal. He was like on video yelling at, or there was an incident at like a restaurant where he was like yelling at staff or something like that.
Okay.
Very, I don't know all the details.
Right,
but he had to step down.
Off-field altercation got him out of there.
Schembechler is like that guy, is the guy for Michigan.
Yes.
Then you have Lloyd Carr, who also coached under him,
Yep.
gets the 97 national championship, retires in 07. And then you have Rich Rod, Brady Hoke, Jim Harbaugh, and now Sherrone Moore.
Right.
Rich Rod, Brady Hoke, both doing other things in coaching right now, were not the fit for Michigan.
No.
Combined 1-6.
Yeah.
When Harbaugh, up until Harbaugh wins his first game, Michigan is 1-11. Obviously, most of that was Jim Tressel, who went 10-1, though technically it's 9-1 because of the vacated season. Then you have Fickle stepping in, goes 6-6. That whole year is weird. Urban goes 7-0.
Yeah.
And I think at this point, you've just been so. You've been so blessed in a way that you can go that long. Woody Hayes his best win streak against Michigan was 4 wins.
Okay. Yeah.
Lost the last 3.
Right.
To Bo.
Okay.
And to me, I think of Tressel when I think of a coach, because that's who I grew up watching with Ohio State. But Woody Hayes is the guy. Woody Hayes is the Bo Schembechler.
Yes.
They are one and the same for 2 different programs.
And they ran parallel and they helped create that powerhouse.
Yeah, they Woody starts, overlap, Bo finishes type thing. But you don't have. It's not like he was unstoppable against that team. He's 16-11 overall.
Yeah.
So, and one tie, because ties still happened back then. Then you have Earl Bruce, 5-4. Again, that's barely over 500, but you gave him 9 seasons.
Right.
If you give, does Ryan Day finally turn it on next year?
Right.
Is that what it is? Where it's you give him the Harbaugh limit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And maybe, but my caveat with that is you would be hard pressed to argue that Michigan was 2/3 of the program whenever Harbaugh got there that Ohio State was when Day got there, or when Day took over.
Okay, that is a very fair point, because they were top 5, let's say, every year.
I mean, Urban was quite literally getting them to the playoffs every single year.
Yes.
And then Ryan Day comes in and he inherits that.
Still does.
Right.
For the most part.
But Urban did it all while not ever losing to Michigan.
And also getting them Big Ten championships, stuff like that. Yes. I think you need to give Ryan Day one more year.
I agree.
At a minimum. I think if he wins, you kind of go. But I believe he's signed through 2028. It's 4 more years. You get to 2026, you have some more issues.
So be it.
There he goes.
Right.
I think if at the point where he's 2-5, say he wins next year, but he gets back and loses again the next year, it's like, yeah, Michigan just has you. Like that, they just have the read on you, and I feel like that's what went wrong this game.
Yeah, they knew what Ryan Day football looked like,
and it was like this stubbornness to continue to run when you're not getting the runoff, and then when you pass, you're not playing the pass well either.
Right,
You know
it's
what I
not a
mean?
dynamic passing game. It's very flat-footed. It's very simple.
You have some of the best receivers in the league, and
Yeah.
you never use them, and because you're so focused on saying our running backs are the best.
Which, that right there, what you just said, is, I think, a big reason on why I'm not real sure he gets another year. We have heard all year, ad nauseum, how this might just be the best Ohio State roster ever. And
True.
And it still lost 2 games in the regular season, and it's still not in the Big Ten title. And you're probably going to get the home game still in the first round, but you're on that cutoff.
Maybe.
And if you don't, you might have to travel to a team that can have your number. If they're at their own place.
I think I saw The Athletic projected it with IU, which I was like,
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
That'd be an interesting matchup. I
Yeah.
don't love it, but
No, I will, and I don't. I'm not big on conference play until necessary in those brackets, just because
split them all up if you can.
Right,
but
we don't get here to see Big Ten versus Big Ten in the first round.
just like you don't want to see SEC versus SEC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And no other conferences will we really have to worry about that.
No.
But I don't. If in the first round we get Tennessee and Ole Miss or whatever, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Because this that defeats the whole purpose. But whatever.
But yeah, I do. I think it'll come. I think it'll come down what happens in the playoff. I think it'll come down to what happens next year. And I think there needs to be some kind of announced change this offseason.
Yes.
Whether it's even like saying that Day is completely stopping offensive play calling, or he's taking over something from Chip Kelly. It's kind of like what the Bengals fans of the Bengals have been calling for. It's like, just announce something and we'll be happy. Like,
Right.
show that you're making a change in the coaching level, because the team isn't the problem.
Right.
The players aren't the issue.
Yeah, the quality is unquestioned. It's just execution at this point, and that all falls back on Day and company.
Yep. So that'll be something to watch on. And getting off of football,
Yes.
we have one more fall sport that I want to talk about for a second, because this is the start of the college volleyball, women's volleyball tournament. I always like to promote women's volleyball, especially because that's where I got my start with sports reporting.
Yeah.
I walked into the newsroom at the Purdue Exponent, said I want to volunteer to take photos because my friend was the photo editor at the time. The news writer took me into an office and said, "Want to write about sports?" And I was like, "Oh, I guess that would be cool."
Yeah.
He's like, "We don't have sports reporters. Come write about sports." And I went, "Okay,
Big deal.
do it." I knew basketball, I knew football. I never watched a game of volleyball in my life.
Okay.
But I became the beat reporter for the volleyball team for 2 years, even while I was the editor-in-chief. Covered 2 teams that did. I actually, ironically, my first year was one of their worst seasons.
Oh, really?
They were still positive. They're still over 500, but it was a team that wasn't as good overall when you look at records. And then the next year did even better, had some really great freshmen the year after that, and it's just been going on to the point where they are now the 4th seed,
Yes.
or a 4 seed. Also, local teams, Louisville, number 1 seed.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're necessarily a favorite to win. The thing about volleyball is a lot of times if you look at a bracket and you go number one, Final Four, probably right.
Yeah.
Pitt, Nebraska, Louisville, and not Stanford, not Texas. Oh, I can't remember the other number 1 right now. Miami, maybe. I don't believe it's Miami, but
It's somebody.
yes. But they're Nebraska, Pitt have been 2 favorites right now. Nebraska is looking pretty unstoppable. Pitt has been crushing the ACC, which has also had strong competition from SMU. It's a historically Big Ten, Pac-12 league.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't have the Pac-12 anymore.
Nope.
SEC has been competing a lot more harder too. The ACC pulled in a lot of the good volleyball teams from California. Here you go.
Yeah.
UK is also a very good team. Tennessee is also a very good team. You have a lot of SEC strengths. But Louisville's hosting, UK's hosting. Dayton is a 5th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
type thing. So
you've got local athletes, you've got local teams, very highly prominently featured on this bracket, and kind of a culmination of some really great stuff throughout the year. So
yeah, and again, if you're going to ask me who do I think is going to win, it's going to be Nebraska or Pitt.
yeah,
Right here,
of our
it's going to be Purdue.
there you go. Of our 3 locals,
Louisville.
Okay. You think Louisville's got the
Louisville
farthest
has looked really good, and the only reason they didn't win the ACC is because Pitt won and has just looked
right.
like a different level. If I'm not mistaken, Louisville and Pitt have gone to 5 sets in their matchups this year, and that's not common type
Right.
thing. So, yeah, check those out. ESPN has a fantasy tournament type thing.
I just did my bracket not too long ago for our group.
Good. I was gonna say I have a few coworkers that are competing against me because I'm the only one that really follows college volleyball here, and that's all right. But yeah, just if you're ever looking for something to watch, check that out.
Yeah.
And then obviously watch the final quarter this week. You
Absolutely.
got all the high school and college coverage as well.
Really, if you have any weekend plans or plans on Friday, just cancel them because we have you covered.
Yeah, so many good games.
Between games and FQ and let's see. Well, obviously the volleyball matches, and there's too much. Come on, or you could rewatch this episode like 7 times. It'd be great.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's a whole day. Look at that.
And you can watch us YouTube,
Yep.
Fox 19 app, and on the website.
Questions about audio this week because of our timing cap.
I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Well, but if not,
If you're listening to this, wherever you get your podcasts, it did get posted, so congratulations.
and if not, you'll probably still hear the Moeller interview.
Yes, it'll be somewhere for you. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's all we got. So thank you all for joining us, and we will be back again next week after the end of football.
Yeah. See you next
Moving on
time.
to basketball. See you then.